I wouldn't say week 7 went exactly like week 6 did, but it was close. It was close. There were several times where, I really just kind of had to shake my head and ask, where am I? What is going on? Because after everything we saw in week 6, there was all these predictions, and it was almost like we convinced ourselves that things are going to return more to normal. Here's the predicted how things normally go normally in the week 7 games, and we didn't get much of that. Texas, Oklahoma. Now this game went about like I thought it would. Oklahoma just doesn't have it. They really don't. Their starting highly touted quarterback gets knocked out of the game weeks ago against Tennessee, and they've been playing a true freshman ever since. And a lot like Tennessee, with a true freshman quarterback, you've got some serious bumps you've got to deal with. But Oklahoma doesn't have any of the other complementary, skill sets or talents, if you will, to really kind of offset anything that they do well, because there isn't much that they do well. This was Quinn Ewer's first game back. He had a bit of a rocky start. Throws that interception, I believe, right there in the first quarter. In Oklahoma, either on that drive or very soon after, goes down, kicks a field goal. It's 3-0, and that's the first time all season that Texas has trailed in a game, by the score. But it's almost like they realized that and really kind of kicked it in. I'm not going to go as far as to say that for the first part of that game Texas wasn't paying attention and they let one get by them. I think they just had to settle into the game, can basically make sure all the outside noise was gone away from them, and they played their ball, and it didn't take long for them to really get going. Helm and Wingo finally made some really good plays. Gunnar Helm, that tight end they've got, that guy is the truth. That he is going to give problems to every team they face. I mean, the guy's like 6'30", you know, 250 pounds of just steel, high pointing balls away from defensive backs. I mean, it's incredible. But they got going. Like I said, Oklahoma gets off to the 3-0 start. Texas hit their stride and score 34 unanswered points. And comes away with a win, 34-3. Interesting stat that was pointed out, but really, kind of embarrassing for him. This is Brent Venables' third year at Oklahoma. Brent Venables is the only coach in Oklahoma history to lose to Texas twice by more than 30 points. Happened yesterday. It happened 2 years ago, I believe. Yeah, 2 years ago. Um, yeah, Oklahoma had a really good offense. This is going back before this year. Had a really good offense, but couldn't do anything defensively. So bring in a defensive coach, run your star starting quarterback out of town. We've got to have defense. You basically, forgive the expression, but you basically sold your farm just to look at the other side of the coin. Now your defense is a little better. You brought in a defensive minded head coach. You can't score a point. Um, Oklahoma did not find any middle ground when they kind of went through this transition, and I hate it for them. I hate it for their fans. They'll get it figured out. This isn't. I mean, Texas is number one team in the country, and yesterday they showed why. But Oklahoma will figure it out. They'll be okay. But yeah, just with some of the things that it wasn't some of the things that happened in the game. It was the way Texas made them look. So yeah, obviously, things to work on. But yeah, number one Texas beats number 18 Oklahoma, 34-3 in the 200th version of the Cotton Bowl. Number seven's Alabama and South Carolina. All right, Alabama, I almost did just a little clip video, about halftime, middle of the game or whatever, and I'm kind of glad I didn't, but I haven't really changed my mind either. Somewhere around late third quarter, late second quarter, early third quarter, whatever, Bear Bryant probably rolled over in his grave. Um, and I'm going to say this, and some people may agree, some people may not, but look at it objectively, pull back a little bit, and really think about what I'm about to say. Alabama's loss to Vanderbilt last week was not a one-off. Um, it had been said all week that it wasn't really a fluke to begin with, and I definitely don't think it was. Last week when Alabama lost to Vanderbilt, Vanderbilt just flat outplayed them, outcoached them, outplayed them. Comes away with the win. It almost happened yesterday for the second time since 2007. Nick Saban's first year, he lost two back-to-back, I think, conference games, or just two back-to-back games. But Alabama finds a way to win at the very end of the game, ends up winning 27-25. Alabama has some serious culture problems, and something that I didn't really point out last week, but I'm going to because I think it's relevant now. Last week, when that whole incident happened with Malachi Moore, before he ever kicked the ball and did all that or whatever, they were trying to take him out of the game. They were trying to sub him out for another player. The defensive coordinator and the head coach were like out to the numbers almost on the field, trying to get him to leave the field. And he basically gave his coaches the finger and said, "I'm staying," and that's the end of it. And then the coaches turn around and walk off. If they would have been pretty much any other coach in college football, they would have called a timeout, walked out to him, laid hands on him, and taken him to the sidelines. If it would have been Nick Saban may or may not would have called a timeout, referees be damned, walked out there, grabbed him by the face mask, and drug him back to the locker room. Alabama has serious, serious culture problems. I'm starting to think that back last year, Alabama lied to us. The Alabama football program lied to us when they said Kalen DeBoer is our next head coach. They should have said Malachi Moore is our next head coach. The lunatics are in charge of the asylum over there. Bama has problems a lot worse than what's being put out. And I made a comment in a video earlier in the season that back in the preseason, back in the offseason, several veteran Alabama players were making several comments to the effect of, there are things going on that never would have happened, that wouldn't be going on if Nick Saban was still here. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's important for a new coach to come in and kind of put his stamp on things, kind of set things up the way he wants them to be, with his, brand of culture and, his people and all this kind of whatever. But DeBoer he's failing. He's dropping the ball. I don't think he has control of that locker room. I don't think he has control of the team, and it's showing in their games. Alabama's got more losses coming. I'll get to the Florida Tennessee thing later, and I know Florida took Tennessee to overtime. Florida's probably playing the better. They're probably playing the best ball they've played all year. Florida's not any good. Like I said, we'll get to that later. But Alabama's going to Knoxville next weekend. Alabama's coming off of a win that they were lucky to get at the very end of the game. But I don't think the Alabama win is going to give them any added fuel or motivation going into next week like Tennessee's win did. Because it was just two completely different atmospheres. Alabama's going to look at that 27-25 win and go, well, yeah, we win. We expected to win, but why didn't we win by 3 touchdowns? They're not going to be happy with it. And I'm not saying Tennessee fans are going to be happy with everything that happened in that game, but the Tennessee win over Florida is going to give Tennessee a lot more motivation and drive going into next week than Alabama's win did to them. But Alabama escapes with the win, 27-25. Here's what I'll say about South Carolina. Every team has a point, I guess, where they're like they know where they want to be, like goal wise. They know how far they want to advance. They know how far they want to progress. South Carolina, and imagine that as like either like a starting line or a finish line or whatever you want to call it. South Carolina is closer to that than any other team in the SEC as far as like getting to a point to where they are achieving their goals. I mean, they are so close to it. They are literally standing over it, looking at it straight down. South Carolina is right there. You know, heartbreaking losses to Alabama. I know the loss to Ole Miss, was really kind of one sided, but it's South Carolina. I'm not going to say they're the next team up. They're the next big thing, but do not sleep on this South Carolina team. They will snatch one. Because South Carolina will not quit. South Carolina will play 60 minutes of all four quarters, and if they have a chance to yank a game away from you, even if it's at the very end of the game, they will do it. If you jump up, a big lead score on South Carolina, that does not mean they're going to just roll over for you and let you have it. So South Carolina is going to continue to give people, some problems. You know, Alabama didn't expect the problems they were going to get from them yesterday, but here we are. So South Carolina, hey, keep pushing. Like I said, I've got fans that are South Carolina. I've got family that are South Carolina fans. Hey, keep going. I know y'all are a big game against Tennessee most years, but hey, better games make better teams make better games. So we'll see how it gets there. Speaking of up and coming teams, Vandy and Kentucky. All right. I honestly don't remember if I predicted Vanderbilt to win this game or not. But I am probably the least surprised in the world that they did. Um, Vanderbilt is really kind of unexplainable right now. It's being said, people are wondering, what's the key to their success? What are they doing that's giving them so much positive thing? Vanderbilt is playing very smart football. And by the same token, Vanderbilt plays it's almost like it's methodical and like a head game, like more of a head. They're playing more of it in their head against their opponents than they are on the field. Kentucky special teams. This is just one point I'm going to make. I'm not saying this is what lost them, but God, did it look bad. Kentucky special teams problems. It was the stuff that Kentucky tried to force, really. Kentucky's, their special teams is out there for a field goal, and it's like a point after distance. I mean, it's not like, it's a 30 or 40-yard field goal or whatever. They tried to fake it and throws an interception. Um, I think people are still underestimating Vanderbilt, and I think after yesterday, I think those days are over. I think that Vanderbilt is now a game on your schedule that you're actually paying attention to. Vanderbilt isn't a gimme anymore. Tennessee, hey, wake up, guys. Like kind of like South Carolina, Vanderbilt is going to play you the entire game, and if they can snatch one away from you, that's exactly what they're going to do. Vanderbilt wins that game 20-13. Kentucky just, I don't know. It's they just couldn't really get a whole lot going, really, and their defense could not stop Vanderbilt's quarterback. He's throwing it, he's running it, he breaking tackles and getting away, and you know, of course, the a couple of interceptions, but really kind of both ways for both teams, but still, Vandy just they outplayed them and they outcoached them. Vanderbilt didn't make Kentucky look dumb or pedestrian or anything, but at the end of the day, Vanderbilt comes away with that win. And like I said, if you're not paying attention to Vanderbilt and especially what they can do on offense, it's time to do so. LSU Ole Miss. This game went almost exactly like I thought it would. I did predict LSU to win. They did, not necessarily in the fashion that I thought they would, but a win nevertheless. Ole Miss kind of jumps out and had, an early lead. And again, LSU didn't struggle. Ole Miss didn't make them look, like a completely inferior team. But here we are. Number 13 LSU, number 9 Ole Miss in Baton Rouge. Yeah, LSU comes away with a 29-26 overtime win. Um, LSU is probably the best team in the SEC that no one's talking about. Um, A&M is starting to get some attention, though they had a bye week this week. But LSU is a team that, like I said, they're not very, very high on many teams' radars, and they're going to win some games. Ole Miss basically just now has 2 bad losses. I and Ole Miss has a few more yet to come. Ole Miss, I think they still have to play Georgia. Ole Miss isn't making the playoffs. I think if the SEC gets 4 teams in the playoff, Ole Miss is probably going to be number 5. Um, that game, Nussmeier at the very end, the touchdown pass that he threw at the very end of the game, that is what you call throwing your receiver open. That is all there is to it. But yeah, Ole Miss comes away with a 29-26 win, or LSU comes away with a 29-26 win in Baton Rouge at night. Real quick, the Florida-Tennessee game, and I may talk more about this in another game later. This game did not go like everybody thought it would. Tennessee was like a 14.5, 15-point favorite, and a lot of people were buying it. And Florida just played them. Florida's coaching lost it for this one. Some of the worst coaching, play calling I've ever seen. Bad clock management. You name it. But they took them to overtime, and Tennessee ends up getting it done and winning 23-17. The first half looked a lot like the Arkansas game, and actually, it almost looked exactly like it. Florida took a 3-0 lead into halftime. Tennessee just didn't look that good. Wasn't really clicking on offense. Their defense kept them in it like they normally do. But the difference between this game and the Arkansas game was that in the second half of the game, Tennessee finally started playing smart football. Um, they come out, they're trailing 3-0 at halftime, and then you come out, and before you know it, before the end of the third quarter, we're tied at 10. They finally got smart and started running the ball. And started having success running the ball. Nico ended up being 16 of 26 for 169 yards, no touchdowns, threw 1 interception. Dylan Sampson is the team, and I hate to make it sound so one-sided because we do have somewhat of a passing game that complements the running game enough. But Dylan Sampson, last I heard, unless something has changed, Dylan Sampson is the leading scorer in the SEC. He has scored more points than anybody in the SEC. Our team is Tennessee's offense is built on Dylan Sampson running the ball, maybe a few other people running the ball, and Nico being able to run the ball. If we can successfully do that, we're going to win more games than we're going to lose. But an interesting stat, and I'll kind of leave you with this one, and it just really kind of surprised me. Tennessee's played 6 games. Every team that Tennessee has played so far this year, Tennessee's defense has forced that team into using their backup quarterback.